Okay, so I don't know how long I'm going to stay on here. I was debating. I was like, I want to go live. And I was going to come on camera because I'm still together. But I was like, I kind of want to just be able to chill and stay in the upstairs part of my house versus going downstairs. So here we are. And hopefully we won't be glitchy because the weather is not the best. And I am on the 3rd floor. But hopefully we'll be okay. I need to definitely do some editing of videos for you guys, but I don't know when I'll get around to it, if I'm just being honest. So I figured I would just go live in the meantime, in between time. Hi, Darnell. You're still up? I'm still up too. Really, I'm up because I'm trying to have a relaxing evening. I've had such a hectic week that I'm trying to make my evening super relaxing. So strangely, it's not super, well, it might be later for some people than others, but I'm up. And I'm up for some conversation too. So I don't think a lot of people are going to be up in the middle of the night, but you guys can come up. And, oh, it's morning in London. Oh, well, good morning then. Good morning then. But I am up for some conversation. We can talk about anything. I've kind of avoided all of the issues going on in the media. I was talking about this on my Patreon and my memberships page. I was like, I haven't made any commentary on a lot of the things that have been in the media just because I am a bit just kind of over everything. I'm kind of over it. Hey, Lala. Oh, it's 9:30 there? Well, Sol said that it's morning in the UK too. Oh, it's 3:32 where you are? So you're on the East Coast. I only know that because I'm on my Mac and my computer is set to East Coast time, even though I'm not on the East Coast. Hello. So yeah, anyway, this should be pretty chill and relaxed. Yeah, I just kind of been avoiding all the topics. I've been trying to avoid the Candace Owens and Cardi B thing. I've been trying to avoid the issues over cuties. I've been trying to avoid this talk of interracial dating that's come up because of Candace Owens being pregnant. You know, I've just tried to avoid everything to do with the election, mostly because, like I said, I'm just over it. I really am. And also, I was thinking, it's really weird how we talk about how we have new Black media. I was kind of opining about this, kind of going on a rant about this to my members. Like, it's weird how we're always talking about new Black media, but we talk about all the same things that the secular media talks about. And I guess I just didn't feel like contributing to that cause, you know? I feel like the level of distraction is super high right now. That it's really, really high. And I just don't want to partake in being part of that distraction. I almost feel like we're sort of doing the work of the system because we keep regurgitating all of the same things that they're talking about. So that's made me not want to do any commentaries because I'm just like, ugh, you know? What was a good live? Oh, yeah, you saw it, Lala. Was it? Because I was just like on a whole rant. I just really was. I don't know. Why don't I tell you guys what I've been up to? How about that? How about I tell you guys what I have been up to? So this week, you know, was the week that Ziax started their school year. And this year, I'm doing the facilitating. So I'm teaching social studies, obviously, but I'm also doing the facilitating for the pre-college class, and they are 10th through 12th graders. And I have an amazing group of kids. Like, honestly, I'm going to try to talk to their parents. I would love for you guys to be able to sit in and audit one of my classes because these kids are amazing. And there's about 15 of them. You guys know I was working on the textbook. No, I did not finish it, but I did finish the first sections for 4 classes. So by the end of the school year, I want to be able to have a K through 12th grade Afro-centered social studies curriculum, like textbooks, digital textbooks that I can share with everybody, especially those of you who are wanting to homeschool. But so Ziax started their school week, and so it's been a hectic week for me. Literally, I did not sleep for 2 days of the week, like at all. And then when I did start sleeping, I was getting like 3 and 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, New Black Media is just talking mainstream media. I agree, Lala. And I don't want to be a part of that. I really don't. I feel like it knocks us off our purpose, you know? And this got me thinking of a lot of things. And I'm talking about what's going on at the school because today I had a conversation with my students, and they had an assignment, and they had to take their vocabulary words for the week. And their vocabulary words for the week, although we had a chill week and the kids didn't really do well, my kids did work, but not the kind of work I'm going to make them do next week. But there are some core vocabulary words that, you know, Q Better put together that speak to the qualities he wants to see the children exhibit. So integrity, community, right? Things like that. And I had the children pick a word from their vocabulary list, turn it into an acronym, and then explain and like tie that into Black power and then flush that thought out. And so as I was talking to the kids, I would challenge what they would say. So, you know, one of my young ladies said, you know, we are kings and queens, so we need to think and act like kings and queens. So my question for her was, what does a king or queen act like, right? What is a royal mindset in contrast to a peasant mindset? And she goes, well, I don't really know, you know, I've just, you know, always been told Black people are kings and queens. And I said, well, here's the thing. It's okay to say stuff, right? But you have to know what you're saying. And I feel like, and, you know, I came with her with love, obviously, but I was challenging her, like, so you've made this statement because you've heard it and you're regurgitating it, but what is the substance behind what you're saying, right? Because it sounds nice. Nobody, you know, who doesn't want to be told they're a king or a queen? But what is the substance behind that thought, right? What is the substance behind that thought? And I'm going to get to that, Darnell, the New Black Media positioning. But, you know, what is the substance behind that thought? I was asking her. And I said, how would a royal mindset handle an adverse situation differently than a peasantly mindseted person? Give me a real example of what that looks like. And she wasn't able to, so I told her over the weekend to write me a short essay to make what she said make sense, right? Another one of my young ladies. Now, all of these children are bright, but I'm going to circle back around to New Black Media, y'all, I promise, but just walk down the road with me here. So, then, you know, another young lady, she said, you know, I feel that our time in America has shown us who we are. So then my question for her was, who are we? Right? How are we? Right? And she said, well, you know, we have been traumatized and we are being traumatized. And I said, okay, but that doesn't answer the question. I asked you, how are we? Right? Who are we? And she wasn't quite sure. right? And I said, okay, so if you're answering my question with, we have been traumatized and we are being traumatized, how is that expressing itself? How is that manifesting? Because you can make a statement and okay, the statement is true, but do you understand what you're saying, right? Or are we just regurgitating talking points? And something occurred to me, like as I was going child by child by child. And like I said, these are beautiful and intelligent children, but I wanted to challenge them to do more than parrot off ideologies. What is behind these ideologies? What does it mean, right? What does that literally mean? Because at the end of the day, if all we have are catchphrases that make us feel good, then we'll never move on to analytical thought. We'll never move on to action. And if there's one thing the Black community definitely has down, we have down how to talk and say a bunch of catchy stuff, but we don't have the acting part down. Because we're calling each other kings and queens, but nobody knows or can describe or is exhibiting en masse any sort of royal mindset. Nobody can do a compare and contrast from a royal mindset to a peasant mindset. You know, I had a young man say, you know, we need to apply ourselves better and basically not do bad things. And I said, well, give me an example. He said, so for example, don't rob a bank. And I said, is robbing a bank bad? And he said, absolutely, yeah. I said, is it? Is it wrong to rob a bank in every case? Is robbery wrong in every situation? And I started talking about Africa, and I used South Africa as an example. And the desire some people have to simply take the land that the white people have down there. Is that not robbery? But would it be wrong? Is there no case where robbery is right? Can you rob a robber? Right? So just challenging them to think past what we've been taught. So let me circle it back around to New Black Media, because I said I was going to circle it around back to New Black Media. And so I want to do that, right? So we have New Black Media. And hi, Goodness Rated. Hi, Nelly. Hi, R. I'm sorry that I'm not seeing you guys come in. And if you guys want to participate in the conversation, you can. But I find that my family here on this channel, you guys are not, like, you guys are down to listen and to contribute in writing, but you guys are not big on coming up and talking to me. Some of you are, but most of you are not. I find that very interesting. Because you guys have so many interesting things to say when you comment. But anyway, so New Black Media. So as everything was happening, you know, with like everything that's been going on recently, you know, these issues, you know, with Trump and, you know, what he said about, you know, allegedly, what he said about, you know, Black people essentially being the only group of people that would be comfortable and okay with and allow themselves to live in squalor. And everybody was up in arms and mad and pissed and, you know, felt some kind of way, hi Neely, about it. And hey, Cass. And I just was like, ugh. He probably did say it. First and foremost, that's the kind of mess he would say, okay? So for one of our presidents to be racist, I'm gonna just need people to stop pretending and acting like they're shocked and appalled and surprised. And haven't they all been racist? Do we really expect anything else? So it's neither here nor there to me what he said, but I did think it was interesting, even though I wasn't willing to do a commentary on it. I did think it was interesting because our people have become strangely comfortable with their lot. Well, Darnell, I agree it's not robbery, right? I agree it's not robbery. But my point is that I could say the same thing about a bank, right? I could say it's the same thing about a lot of things. So we have to question the narrative of what it means to take something unjustly. But when I heard the thing that, Trump allegedly said and likely probably did say, I was like, man, we have become really comfortable. A lot of our people with conditions of living that we shouldn't be comfortable with. We really have. So I decided not to do a commentary on it because honestly, I mean, what am I going to say? I don't care what Trump said. I'm not about to sit here and pretend like it's some sort of shock and surprise that a president would say something bad about the Black community. It's like, why are we pretending like any of them are any different? Trump, Biden. The only reason, honestly, I would not bother with Biden is simply because he will literally be a puppet to exact governmental control. And that concerns me because people don't have the spine to buck against the system. If we've learned anything from COVID, what we've learned is people have no spine. People are punks. And all this, rioting and looting and quote unquote protesting, all this tantrum throwing aside, everybody's still out here, quarantine, wearing their masks, eating outside, exercising outside, doing stupid stuff. I watched it, and I'll probably do a commentary on this for my patrons or my members. But in California, there are fires. And they told people that wearing masks would not help filter out the debris in the air from the fires and the smoke. Now, the debris from fire and smoke is actually really big. Those debris are large. In San Francisco, it was raining ash. So the mask you wear to protect yourself from a virus, which is very, very tiny, is not good enough to protect you from smoky air with particulates that are very, very big. I just want you guys to wrap your head around that. So, I mean, not only do we not have spines, we lack critical thinking skills in mass. So I'm worried. I'm less worried about what Trump was saying about some stuff that's true about the Black community, which is that a great deal of our people live in squalor and haven't popped up and started a revolution because they're disgruntled about it. So he could be right. Apparently, only Black people will roll that way, at least in this country, without literally just tossing the whole nation. So I couldn't do a commentary on that because I felt like it would be an opinion that was far too unpopular for me to say. And I've already said enough controversial stuff on this channel. Yeah, Elijah, true. Sometimes the familiar is more comfortable. Oh, you want to call in? You want to call in? I'm not having a call in. You can come up. You can come up and talk. But I'm not going to do a call in. But you're welcome to come up and talk if you like. I'll put the link in the chat. But, so I'm less concerned with what Trump had to say because he spoke the truth. It was true. And if there's one thing our president will do is say some uncomfortable truths. Like when he said, if you have money, women will let you grab them in the pussy. It's true. He told the truth. People get mad at you if you say the truth. Now he's racist, but at least he's honest, which is more than I can say for Joe Biden, who's a closet racist, who thought it was like a fairy tale that Obama was clean and articulate. He literally said it's like a fairy tale. I would rather somebody who would just speak the truth than make believe and play pretend. But what scares me is that we have no backbone, we have no spine. So how am I tying this into new Black media? Like, how am I tying this into new Black media? Truth teller, it's interesting that you say that. You said you never know what the body can get used to. It seems like we can withstand a lot. It's so interesting that you say that, because one of my students in class on Friday said the same thing. Said we are, what did he say? He said that we are very strong because we can endure a lot. Like we are resilient. That's what he said. We're resilient. Right? He's a young man. His parents are Hebrew Israelites, so he's a Hebrew Israelite. He's like, we're really, resilient. Da 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 da. We have everything from atheists to Jews to Hebrew Israelites to Christians to whatever in the school, right? Just a different kinds of Black people coming together to educate their children. And I said, we're so resilient, yet we're so fearful. You know what I'm saying? Like strangely, you know what I'm saying? We can withstand a lot, and yet we're so fearful of doing anything that would make us even remotely uncomfortable. You would think the first people to get the revolution popping would be the people in the ultra ghetto. Like, we're so resilient and we can stand so much, yet we can't stand the idea of engaging in anything that might actually cause us discomfort. It's very fascinating to me. That's what I was telling my students. Fascinating. We won't build anything independently that is not in agreement with the status quo, like something that the status quo doesn't agree with, because we're scared of the discomfort that will come along with that work. So it's fascinating to me. I mean, I'll agree. You'd be surprised what you can get used to. But it's funny that we can only get used to discomfort that is imposed, right? Oh, Darnell, I think you need to do something. It says you have to connect your mic cam and create an avatar for yourself or something. Yeah, resilient but blinded by fear, Cass. You got it. Girl, you said it. Speak the truth.
Wait.
Speak the truth. Lala said, I'm tired of us having to be resilient. It's driving our kids insane. The thing is that, here is the thing, right? Resilience is good depending on what you do with it, right? So let's say we're abused. Like, I'm abused, you're abused, we're abused together, okay? I'm getting my butt kicked. I'm getting raped. I'm getting hurt as a child. I'm doing all this stuff, right? And I come out of it on drugs. Like, I'm alive. I survived. You know what I mean? I survived our crazy dad tearing us up. But I come out of it. I'm a drunk. I'm living in squalor. I'm whoring myself out. You come out of it and you start a facility for youth so you can advocate for them and all this other stuff. So we're both resilient. We both survived, right? But one of us did something productive and one of us just wallowed in self-pity.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Irene, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you.
Yeah.
So are we still talking? Are we gonna still get around to that COVID thing? Because I did have something to say about that, but I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, what's there to say? People are punks. The government is running us. That's the story on COVID.
See, I've been bullying my mom on that one, right? Because I, from day one, thought that this was going to be like a whole bad idea, that it was going to just be this whole thing of the government trying to seize control, right? And every single, because you know I'm from Louisiana, and Louisiana was like the biggest quote unquote hotspot for COVID. And every stage of the way, because my mom would always have the news on, every single stage of the way, I was like, this is a scam, and nothing that they're doing is doing anything. And they're just using it to exercise power. And case in point, right? I've been saying that, like I said, for the last 6 months or so, however long this has been going on. Why do you think that we went to stage 3 today? Well, not today because it's after 12 o'clock, so it's technically a new day. So yesterday morning, common sense, we had the highest rates per capita. So we didn't have we had the third highest total cases, but the highest cases per capita. Anyway,
Well, who cares? Like, honestly, y'all, who cares how many people are sick?
well,
Around a
wait.
little over 100,000 people died. There's 350 million people in this country. That's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, I don't want to sound insensitive, but like it doesn't matter. Like you would think people were dropping dead in the streets. You would think when you walked outside, there's dead people, like a whole plague, like an
Well,
actual issue.
yeah, I said that too, but I was getting to that. I just addressed it because I didn't want it to linger there in the chat unaddressed, and it sounds like I'm just making stuff up. But anyway, um, so yeah, yesterday he comes up and he says that we're going into stage 3. Why do you think that stage 3 is the exact same thing as stage 2? But he says that the governor, I'm talking about the Louisiana governor, he says that bars will have like an arbitrary, like bars can reopen, but they'll have these arbitrary limits placed on them. So they can open up, but they can't open up to the same capacity that other businesses open up, and they can't stay open past 10 o'clock. Now I said, and even my mom, who's been tracing this since the beginning, following the government word for word, even she was like, that doesn't make a lick of sense. She was like, drinking has nothing to do with the virus. It never has. There has never been a single claim that drinking has anything to do with the spread or vulnerability to the virus. And I said, that's what I've been saying to you for the last 6 months. You've been following this so closely for the last 6 months, but that is a completely arbitrary restriction.
I mean, I don't even think any of this, like the conversation of it, it's all like, honestly, to me, this is all a distraction. And that's why, and that is the frustrating part. That's the frustrating part to me, is that like things are happening that matter, and people are so in the clouds that they don't understand. So you understand that we have no food, people. Our harvest was crap. Our harvest was crap for the past 2 years. Like over 70% of our grain stores are already sold. Our harvest was crap this year. Many states plowed their stuff back into the ground. So fresh fruits and vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables, y'all aren't about to be getting those. So there's like stuff afoot that actually matters that nobody's paying attention to. And I think that is what is very problematic. And it's going to smack people in the face real quick, fast, and in a hurry. We're going to get a reality check.
Oh, of course, that too.
It's going to, yeah, I mean,
Because
you have to think they're trying to stop the use of cash money, right? It started with the coins, right? Now they're collecting coins. They don't have coins. They can't print coins. They can't do this and that, right? And it's going to move on to the cash, a cashless system. They're changing how TSA works. so that immunity passports will really be beneficial for people. Like, if you think, like, people talk about, oh, we're slaves, oh, we're so okay, if you think it's oppressive slavery now, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. You've seen nothing yet. You've seen nothing at all. California didn't harvest anything. Oh, I'm sorry, Black Ambassadors. What's that?
No. I was just doing a check, making sure my mic was actually working. So what's going on? I definitely heard you guys speaking about actual COVID-19. So I don't want to jump into too much of that. I wanted to talk about earlier when you were saying XYZ about being punks. I definitely, like to approach a lot of issues or dilemmas that we face as analysis and try to see it from the situation of, oh yeah, that's a valid question. And so how do you move people from a point where they're said to be, let's say, punks, scared, afraid, unknowledgeable, whatever the case may be, to a point where they are and they're prepared, trained, ready, sharpened, situational awareness and prepared, and how are people going to consume it? And so it's more just posing questions, asking questions, seeing how you can solve those questions and trying them out. And then, of course, performing an analysis on it and seeing the effective rate of it and seeing the differences of it and seeing how it works or how it doesn't work. And I think a lot of times we have to give people that mentality, and at least for me to speak it out so people can hear it and figure out how to approach situations that we deal with. So if we feel as though people are quote unquote punks or anything, well, we need to figure out a way on how to inspire them not to be, how to train them and how to inform them not to be. A lot of the information which we have show us being punks and show us protesting. That's why we do it. Because it's something that is promoted in society as a quote unquote method and an avenue that's quote unquote legal, but also justifiable for resistance. So people go constantly doing it. And not too many people develop on that idea saying, what's the effectability of this method? Okay, it is effective, but is it a contradiction for us to also do something else with our time at the same time? Or do we need to disband this method and try to utilize something else? What's the effective rate of this? So, we don't approach problems like that. So I think, even with this situation, which you guys are talking about, COVID-19, well, I know I have a duty and a responsibility of not making my theories as if they are realities, but to propose the theories and then use analysis and databases and, perform experimentation to see if it's right or if it's wrong. And then also still, while those tests and those analyses are being conducted, provide a caution on a 1% level. So if there's a 1% chance that it is true, then we utilize that, but we do not stop our operations to disband our endeavors or conduct, but also figure out a way on how to move forward. So I think we need to, take that type of mentality, and we got to be very careful about what we provide. But I'm not saying it's wrong or it's right. I'm just saying that it is not against the rules to what? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was checking to see because you're breaking up for me, but I don't know if it's just me or if you're breaking up for everyone.
He sounded fine to me.
Did you hear me, Dart?
Yeah, I heard you.
Oh, okay.
So he wasn't breaking up at all for you?
Nah, yeah, I think it was just on your end.
Okay.
Somebody, you need to see they're trying to break your internet up.
No, I'm on the third floor. I just was trying to be comfortable and not have to go downstairs. But
downstairs, yeah. But no, I didn't want to keep rambling on. So go ahead, Dark and Irene.
But
so what are you saying? Like what?
I'm not providing any solution.
How do you? But you asked a question, right? Like, how do you change the mindset?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So that's the question. Like, how do we change the mindset? And if you have one way, and you say, well, this is how we do it, then okay, we need to see that being placed in a plan of action, and then someone else saying, well, I don't think so. This is how you do it. Okay, we'll do that also. And then another person says, no, I think this is how you do it. See, what we get confused is for, let's say, American national interests. Every institution in America does it, but they all do it in a different way. whether it's the Peace Corps, whether it's the military, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the local police department, whether it's the guy just going to actual work at just the oil mill, or going to work at the factory, going to work at the Google. Everybody has their own contributions. They might not know it and be aware of it. It might just be, actually recognizable in their own tangibles and what they get out of it. But nevertheless, it's all engineered to be structured like that. So I'm not arguing against anything that you guys are saying. I think sometimes we get to, position that, no, let's just not argue. I'm asking questions and saying, okay, so what's the strategy for that? And then the next person says, well, this is the strategy I see. Okay, use them all. Let's go. Let's do some work.
Well, personally, in my experience,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, personally, in my experience, I don't necessarily know if you can convince older people, like people who are like 17, 18 and above. Like, I'm sure like you can convince, I'm sure you can convince them. But in my experience, the most—
And this is experience globally, or where? Where are you talking about this?
My experience, I'm saying my experience in the United States.
Okay, so it's United States
like
based.
around the United States, from the places
Okay, gotcha.
or the people I've met around the United States. The most malleable people are generally people that are around like between 14 and 16. So like if you can teach that group, then that's the group that you want to target if you're trying to get them to actually have a mindset where they aren't completely and totally afraid of trying to do something that isn't part of the status quo. Because I've noticed that when they start to get to 17, 18, 19, that's when they start getting more set in their ways. Like that's my personal experience though. Like they'll get more set in their ideology, whatever ideology that is, as they get into their upper teens or early 20s. But they start forming that ideology between 14 and 16. And then they start getting more and more jaded after that 19-20 mark. So, because I used to tutor a lot too. Like I was in.
You said they formulate the ideas, right? I just want to make sure I understand.
So they start forming their ideals between about maybe 14 to 16 is more where they start forming like their deeper philosophical issues or deeper philosophical beliefs. But 17 or 18 is when they start to solidify that. But that may be an arbitrary number that's artificially that may be a number that's artificially sort of artificially inflated because 18 is seen as quote a legal adult. So them solidifying their philosophical beliefs may just be a product of I'm 18, I'm grown, rather than a natural occurring solidification of philosophy, if that makes any sense.
That's true, Lala. That is why the system indoctrinates children early. I'll agree with Dark in that I wouldn't so first and foremost, I'm not in the business of conversionary tactics. I don't believe in attempting to convert people's mindsets. I don't think that's something that you can accomplish. Like people roll with what they want to roll with. And also I give people enough credit to say that they're not retarded. Like sometimes, and I was giving my, on my membership page, I was giving my members this example, of a movie that I had seen that was crazy. It was a father that was raping his daughter, right? And the mother knew about it. And she would just like pop a Quaalude and like pass out and just allow the father to rape his daughter. And then finally one day she wasn't high and she was awake and he was raping her and the girl was screaming and she was in the kitchen and she just turned the TV up. And I think that's how people are, right? That's how people are. I don't think people are actually retarded. I think that people do know what's going on, but we are conditioned to avoid any level of discomfort, any level. I know people who won't even talk about serious topics because they just don't like to be uncomfortable, right? They just don't want to have any sort of deeper, serious conversation. I know people who are ultra surface. You could sit there and talk to them for hours, and they'll only want to talk about what they saw on TV, what they bought. They're not trying to go any further. And it's not because they don't know that nothing's further. It's because they just don't want to. People drink, they get high, they have sex, they dig their heads into sports, a book, whatever vices they're into. And they do all this so that they don't have to be in a place of depth. That's the whole point. Escapism is the point, right? Of most of our lives. We want to escape everything. We don't want to feel any discomfort. We want to avoid everything. Heck, half the time when we have beef within our own families or within our own relationships, we might argue about it and then go on and pretend like nothing happened and not ever actually resolve the problem after we fight and have an argument, right? Or have sex and make up. Like, that is how people function. So that's why I don't believe in conversionary tactics for people. Like, I'll talk about a lot of things and I'm open to talk with people about things. And that's why I'm open to hear the views of whoever, right? Because at the end of the day, I cannot convert your mindset. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try to reach you. Like, that's not my goal, because if you don't want to be reached, I can't reach you. You either want to be in reality or you don't want to be in reality. We can either have a real conversation or we can have a pretend conversation. Like, that's going to be a give and take that the other party has to make their decision, in my mind. But I do agree that when you're dealing with children, right, there is an opportunity to propagandize and indoctrinate children. I think after a certain age, I'll agree with Dark on that, people can only be propagandized with things that make them comfortable. And most people are trained to react to fear and discomfort, and then seek somebody to correct it for them. That's how we're all trained, right? There's a problem. Who's going to correct it for me? Right? Is the government going to correct it? Are you going to correct it? Or if there's a problem, I have no accountability. It's all because some outside force or some outside person did it. With masses and, most people functioning that way, I mean, conversionary tactics cannot work because people have chosen their square. So if you choose a square, I can't convert you off your square. Like, you chose it for a reason. You're not crazy. You know the world is a real thing out here.
Okay, now what if so? Now what if somebody said conversionary tactics is what I've been efficient and effective on? What is your approach to that? And then go ahead.
Hey, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I said, what if somebody just said, hey, look, my conversionary tactics have worked and do work. And this is the efficiency rate, let's say about 60% success rate.
I would say you can't prove that. You can't, because
now, what if they could? I'm asking. Wait, hold on. Listen. Hold on. Hold on. So you would say you can't prove that?
Yeah, I say we're not in anybody's mind, so you don't know if you converted them or not. You don't know.
Well, no,
you don't know what.
You would show by the output. You would show by the output.
The output of
whether the output of the behaviors and actions. So,
but behaviors don't. But
can I finish? You're not letting me finish. Jeez. See, this is what I'm saying. This is not like, relax, okay? This is what I'm trying to actually get at, is that a lot of times in a lot of situations, because I'm not even arguing for that, okay? So, but what I am is that a lot of times we think we know a lot about everything. We think we know about the world, and even in an explanation, we're not very specific with our communication. We need to be very direct, because we say people, but then we're only talking about North America, right? So we need to actually be very specific and very intentional with our communication and corrective of our communication, so we can be efficient and effective to translate a message. Now, when I said, somebody says, hey, look, man, this is my study case. This is how I've been able to utilize conversion tactics to convert certain individuals. And you'll be like, okay, well, let me see. And then you look at it and you'll say, okay, well, how do you determine that? And once again, ask the questions. Well, okay, damn, how did you do that? Well, this was their prior behavior. This was their prior knowledge. This is what their prior assumptions were. After interaction with our courses, after about 6 or 7 indoctrinations, 6 or 7 sessions, 1 or 2 or 3, this is how they have actually changed their output and changed their actual predictions and their perceptions that they had before. Oh, okay. Well, I think this is more efficient and effective, like the indoctrination of children that are younger. Okay. And that's completely fine, because at the end of the day, your effective rate is on the children that are rendering them to grow up and take care of them and bring them in the mentality that would be preferred. And that guy, if he argues that case, or women, then they can show that they have results in efficiency and effective rate if they can prove it. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm not going to say it's impossible, because I don't know everything in the world. So there might be a possibility that lies there for them to do that. And I think a lot of times in these spaces, we don't give the next person the intellectual space or the possibility for them to be right and us for them to be wrong. Because you can't know the solution for, let's say, if you're talking about the world's 7.2 billion people, because you don't know that much. You're only finite. And then let's say Black of America, or whether you're talking about just Black people globally, whatever the situation may be, and it's massive different cultures. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing against you. I'm just saying, okay, that might be a possibility if somebody said that. But I'm more on your guys' presumption of what we should take the time to definitely also focus majority of our energy on the kids,
Well, I'll say like this. All right. The way I look at it, there are people who are open to learning, and then so I want to say there's three groups of people. There's people who are
in the entire world, right? So you're talking about 7.2 billion people.
Let me finish. You told
I'm just asking.
Wait, I'm just talking. Just let me finish my statement. Anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
And this may be subject to like increasing, because I'm just thinking of the three that come to mind right now. There's people who are stuck in their ways. There's people who are open to learning, and there's people who are already doing what they need to do. People who are doing what they need to do don't necessarily, or don't even need somebody to tell them or teach them at all. And if they do need someone to teach them, it's to teach them how to do some stuff they already trying to improve at. Now, the people that are trying to learn, those are the people, not necessarily that you don't necessarily have to go to college to show that you're trying to learn, but like the people who are trying to actively, they know they aren't necessarily the place they need to be, but they're looking to find those things that are going to show them how to be a better version of themselves. Now, if anybody that's an adult is going to be taught, it's those people. But the people who are stuck in their ways are the people who have already picked their ideology and gone with it. Those people aren't going to change for anything. Matter of fact, I'll say this case in point. And I'm going to omit the person that it is. Anyway, a certain person is older in age, right? And I was very deep into politics and being a political activist when I was like 21. And after a while, they became, more aligned with me politically, right? But, and it didn't even take maybe 3, 4, 5 months, they would find any excuse to start getting back into the same political ideologies they had before. And I think Irene, and I don't want to put the words in her mouth, but me and her generally agree on most things. I would say like 65-35% we agree on stuff. So maybe she feels like this too. But most of the time when you convert somebody that's like past a certain age, they're more or less going to try and get back to where they were. Like it's a comfort thing. And matter of fact, I'll take the time to do this. My weekly quote of Thomas Jefferson, and I quote this all the time from the Declaration of Independence. People are predisposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right the wrongs that are done to them. that's been going on for hundreds of years. And that quote was an allusion to thousands of years of history. So it's nothing new that people don't necessarily like to convert from their ideologies. The problem that I see now is that we have about 1,000 times, quite literally 1,000 times more people now than we did at any given point in history. We didn't reach our first billion people total until like 1950. And now we have 7 billion. And America's total population was about 10 million until like 1900. So honestly, I think that we have the exact same issues as we've always had when it comes to the idea of either nation building or building a society that we would want to live in. But it's just harder because we've got 100 times more people, or in this case, 300 times more people.
Well, I'll just say this. The Western world is ran a certain way. The Western world is inclusive of North America, all colonized places in South and Latin America, colonized places in the Africa and Oceania, obviously Europe, and I would say India to some extent. That's been heavily westernized. So when I talk about when I speak, I'm speaking of the blueprint that's used for the Western world. In what is considered the old world in Western societies, they had a lot of revolution, bloody revolutions, where their leaders were often completely killed off. And they have studied this to great extent and gone to great pains to pattern their societies in a way that revolutionary action is almost null. So with that in consideration, people are varied in these places, but within a certain blueprint. So for example, if we're all wearing pants, I might wear jeans, so you might wear hammer pants, you know, the next person might wear slacks, but they're all pants. And that's about as much diversity as we find throughout the Western world, is a culture that seems seemingly different because of, you know, details that might stand out to us on a superficial level. They literally run the same even down to governmental structure, right? Identification numbers, the way the schools are indoctrinated, the way health is performed. Granted, some drugs aren't allowed in some places that are allowed in others, but these are small details. The foundation and the bones and the framework of these things are the same. So people have been cultivated to behave and react in certain ways, which is why they're so easily manipulated. And if nothing demonstrated that, then this situation with COVID should have, right? The
You're
minute
talking about in the West?
The Western world.
Okay, gotcha.
Colonized places, yes. And
wait, colonized places in the Western world?
Well, the Western world includes the places that they colonized.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, the Western world includes the places that they colonized. And something that's indicative that we're all very uniform, and that social control and social indoctrination is very uniform, and people function pretty much in the exact same way globally. COVID is an excellent example of this. The minute they showed what happened in China and was like, that will never happen here, I knew that they planned to implement it here. I literally came on this channel before we ever went on lockdown, and I said, they're going to do it here. They're literally only talking about this because this is how they have taught us to acclimate to things, is that they introduce it to us through media. And then after it's introduced to us through media, then they enact it. That's how they function in the Western world. It's one of the reasons that they want people to have access to internet and television and visual mediums, because it allows for indoctrination and social change much easier. And then we saw throughout the earth, every single country, right, darn near in Western society, enact the same exact lockdowns, enact the same exact policies. And everybody reacted the same, which was with obedience. So we can't think that there is a huge variety of ways that people will behave or react when they've been trained to behave and react in the way that we saw them do, which was 99.9% of people did what they were told. without question. And even when it was promoted for them to ostracize those individuals who would not be in acquiescence, it was like flipping a switch on them. You know, I had to stop watching the news, like going back to the media thing. I had to stop watching the news because for about a week I was like, oh, I'm going to watch the news, like whole 40-minute segments of the news. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't see how people can function if they're watching this stuff on a regular basis. It was like a lot of indoctrination and propaganda and conditioning, like nonstop, hard hitting. It was crazy. I was like, this is insane. Like, you would be paranoid out of your mind. You would be scared out of your mind. You would be concerned for everything. The way that these people are. No wonder people are willing to disown their family over who they vote for in this election. If you watch enough television, if the news is indicative of what TV is like, I see what people's problems are and why it was so easy to exact so much global control over billions of people. You have to think they moved and controlled billions of people within weeks without an issue. It literally took people being locked in their homes for several weeks before people started to kind of decide that they would get out and have a problem. Think
So
about that.
it's like a big problem, right?
I'm sorry?
I said, so I guess you're saying that's a problem, right?
It's not a problem for them, but I definitely
Yeah,
think if
okay.
you can massively control several billion people so easily, that's concerning.
To all people, or
Well, obviously to me, obviously it's not concerning to most people because most people don't have a problem with it. So that's why I said it's these conversations, you know, that we have amongst each other, not just on YouTube, but just in everyday life, they can never be for conversion or indoctrination purposes. And obviously I'm speaking to my personal opinion. I just don't see that it is possible because
that's okay.
we're already looking at a population by the billions that is so heavily conditioned and maneuverable that, you know, this is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the world we live in.
Can we do things in community? I'm just proposing that question. What up, yo, BMT? When somebody has something, like let's say somebody says, I believe in conversion. Next person says, I don't. Okay, well, make your rebuttal. Well, this is why I don't. And then, okay, cool. And then let's dig deeper on the other one person, the conversion, the people who say, I believe in conversion, this is why. And then they expand on it and expound on it and speak about their techniques and how they utilize it and how it works and just get people to understand more. And the person who says, well, they don't, they believe in something else. We'll talk about what you believe in. And then that way we can dive deep into both ways of thinking and we can hear them out and hear their perspectives. But I think a lot of times it goes back and forth with like, hey, this is why I don't think that would work. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's cool for the first 2 or 3 times. But after that, let's dive deep into your thinking for your position so people can better understand that. Because whether you like it or not, some people are going to believe and then some people are not. So at least let's talk to both audience. Yo, what up to BMT?
Hey, what's going on? This is very interesting. I think me, Irene, and Cynthia G had a debate. I think about 2 years ago. About, remember this, Irene, when we said, what if we did a what if debate about revolution and for blacks to actually go against the system? And we played out different things about what would happen. And this is one of them. I'm like, it would have to be an act of God, one world type of thing where everybody was on the same metric system and buck off. And so it happened, but we didn't jump off the track. We didn't go off the grid. If we were ever talking about, well, we're going to just fight against the system, you had your shot when the whole system went down about, I would say at least about 6 months ago. When nobody knew what to do, that probably would have been probably would have been our best chance. But we now know that some people are so integrated, and they proved that just over toilet paper. Like I had never seen somebody got shot and stabbed, and I think I watched the Target go into a riot over toilet paper rolls, and not even the good ones. And so, we're looking at it now that the country is somewhat it's not open, but now we're going into a few things. I remember when I got a phone call, and when I got a phone call, it was like, "Are you ready?" And that's all it was. That's all it took. And when we talk about this type of revolution, or who's willing to actually go against the grain or not, now you're starting to see it to where certain groups are now going their own way. You're seeing where militias, different other programs are coming out of nowhere, and they're pretty much they're fighting. They're having and the government's not is never going to say anything about it. They're never going to say anything about these in-house fighting because it's being carved up.
Facts.
And so right now, some people are being put into question, especially ex-military. I've been offered to go join security firms. You have it where some teachers are, I'm actually teaching homeschool now. And it's pretty interesting on how some people just are not willing to leave. There's new medication that's coming out that they're asking, like, hey, we might be able to curb the pandemic if you take this. And I had a cousin like, yeah, okay, so we take that, y'all don't be afraid. And I'm like, no, I've never known nothing to be free in this world that they just give you all of a sudden. It takes, how long it takes to procure a cure or policies and stuff for that. Like, you saying they just made that in umpteen months? Like, dude, that's crazy. Like, that would mean somebody would have to, at a high level, plan everything and actually get it ready. And I know we like to think that, oh, wait, we're ready. But at this level of, dude, they're way ahead of the game. Some of these people are way ahead. And some countries are already gone off the grid with flooding and different other stuff. And I know that we're too far indoctrinated into this type of system. We just are. And it's to the point where if you say something or you speak out, different forms and formats of entities could shut you down. But I've had a few of my stuff taken down, or or pretty much, and I know a few content creators. I said, hey, we need to talk about SB 145. The people didn't want to talk about that. That's just about pushed through. That's in California for children to have relationships with adults. Now you got it where this world is definitely gone into a dark place now, especially the westernized world. And it needs a type of sacrifice, that of normality, where to be functionality is abnormal, to be dysfunctional and submit to certain systems, that right there is problematic. Because when you're actually talking about, well, the Constitution, well, you got to understand, you wasn't built into the Constitution. Go look it up. Where were you written into the Constitution? You wasn't. You were never written it. So when and I'm somebody who's supposed to be patriotic, but I can you can always look it up, but you wasn't even viewed as a human at one point. And we're now seeing it start to unravel where these certain types of powers that be, they're very much more open about their intent. They don't have to hide it. They don't have to BS you. They don't have to lie to you. They'll tell you straightforward. So when they're getting rid of certain groups or diversity training, or they tell you certain things, they don't tell you that with a blank face. How does somebody go from Indian and say, well, I'm black? Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Oh, well, guess what? If you're that religion, you're evil. 1 minute it was if you're Islamic, you're evil. Now, if you're Christian, you're evil. And if you're any type of religion, you're evil. I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, that is crazy. So wait, they tell you piece by piece. It's like when they give you castor oil, and after a while, you get used to just drinking it. If any of y'all ever drunk castor oil. And
wait, you can drink castor oil? I thought that was like...
Yeah, you can drink it. BMT, can we back up to the Constitution thing and just...
What?
Wait,
yeah, you can drink it. It's only old people.
We're revealing ages right now. We're revealing ages.
Yeah, old people know you can drink it. He's only like, what are you, 23, Dark?
22.
22.
Yeah, wait, you can drink castor oil?
But I want to back up to the Constitution thing because I think, it's important for us to realize that the Constitution, laws, and all that are made to control us. They're going to do whatever they want to do. It has nothing to, it's not, the laws and the constitutions of various countries, right, are not there to control the authorities. They're there to control the people. So those rules and regulations don't apply to them, right? They're flexible. They're for social control, not for powers control. And I think a lot of times we expect them to adhere to the rules that have been laid down for us. It's like, I have rules in my house my kids have to follow, but those rules don't apply to me. I'll do whatever I want to do. And it's the same thing, when it comes to, our Constitution and our laws. They only apply to us, the children.
The children who? Like all children? Or you mean like adults who act like children mentality?
I mean, the peons of society are the children of society. They're the people who are told what to do, manage all that. Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to get the frame of it, right? So what are we talking about? Our specific group? Are we talking about us as Americans? Are we talking
globally?
Yeah, globally. We're talking about 7.2 billion
have constitutions, right?
No. I'm asking about the whole overall topic, right? Are we talking about specifically from the frame of us as Blacks or Africans, whatever you want to call yourself? Or are we talking from just people? So we're talking about 7.2 billion people. I'm trying to figure out what that is.
I would
what we're really talking about, because sometimes we sound like we're talking about all people, and then it's like, come on, that's not even real.
Well, the statement I just made applies. The statement I just made applies to all people. Like in reality,
all people who have a constitution.
All people who are not in a position of authority over the land that are subject to the Constitution.
But they benefit.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I got you. That's not race exclusive.
Okay, got you. So for me, a lot of the times, I think sometimes we get into this 7.2 billion people trying to solve it and think of it, big picture it, and I don't know what we really get into sometimes in our heads. But at the end of the day, even if that was true, they're controlling us. Okay, cool. For them. And it means other groups too, and these other groups are fighting specific wars, these nations and these cultures, and it's very complex. But at the end of the day, they get the dub. So it really doesn't matter about the control. Oh yeah, they're controlling. Okay, yeah, but you got to remember, at one point, the Western Hemisphere was largely inhabited by maybe natives, Black African Americans mixed with natives, whatever it may be. And the peninsula of Europe was only inhabited by them. And over short span of time, they've been able to repopulate themselves throughout the whole entire world, mingle, mix, take over the whole Western Hemisphere, almost seem to be the majority of many places in South Africa or South America to North America, all the way up to Canada. From 1650, native population 90, now they're like 9%. I mean, just basically just repopulating themselves, disperse. Whether it was control and it was manipulation. Yeah, you might be right. Yeah. But nevertheless, there's still groups and there's still certain groups of people trying to make moves, and that's still being battled. And whether they control nations in a certain specific way, okay, that's fine and dandy. And, it's up to them how they want to garden their nation. But I think a lot of times we don't look at it from that perspective about us being Black. Like, well, hey, no, race doesn't matter in this. And we're talking illogical because it's always a factor. That's why your nationality is always a factor.
The statement is
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the statement is valid because at the end of the day, our people talk about things like reparations. Our people are concerned with things like voting. Our people are concerned with whether the police have the right to harm them. So if people are invested in these laws and constitutions, it can't go without saying that you realize that nobody given power by authority over you, nor the authority, have to follow their own rules. So you can't go without saying that. Now, the fact that that applies to anybody is irrelevant. It applies to Black people too, because the same constitution, the same laws Black people don't want violated, they feel that they're invested in, are laws that aren't just for Black people. They are for everybody. So I can't
but it benefit other people. That's why I just said that.
But our people are invested in them. Our people believe in them. Our people go out and protest and complain when they're violent. Right?
We benefit the least from it. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. We're invested.
Okay.
Yeah, we're invested in
I'm not arguing against it.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm trying to just say and bring into the discussion, and I'm not really arguing. I don't do that. Like, stop. I don't do debates.
No, we're not arguing.
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you.
But we're not arguing. You don't have to say that.
Listen to my words. I'm not talking to you. Okay? I'm not talking to you directly. This is not me talking to Irene directly in this communication that I'm about to say. So please listen to my words that are coming out of my mouth. So what I was basically trying to translate, and maybe I'm not doing it properly, so let me reapproach. What I'm basically trying to say is that we don't know a lot about the world, and we assume we do in these live streams. 7.2 billion people, that's why I keep reporting. There's a lot of people in the world. To pretend that we know about what's going on in the grand scheme of things, it's almost, that's kind of, okay, really? I'm just asking a question because I'm not going to call anybody no name who says they know about that. That's why I said, let's be really specific about what we talked about earlier today when I said, hey, North America, is that what we're talking about? And people don't like that. They're like, oh, no, chill. I'm just trying to understand what basic group of people you're talking about. Many different cultures are very different. I've traveled. I haven't been back in the States. I lived overseas for 15 years now. I've been and worked and lived over 70 countries. I'm different. I see many different type of realities. Many different people are going through. I'm not somebody that's sitting in America and never is left America only for tourism. So when I pose these questions, it's not me trying to say you're wrong. I'm just trying to ask a question. Do we think that we know a lot far beyond our means? And that's all. I'm not saying.
Well, I don't know who us is, but I'll speak for myself. I'm extremely well traveled as well, but I wouldn't.
I said I worked.
I wouldn't even have to be well traveled to communicate with people in other countries, to be abreast of political situations in other countries. So I don't think anybody who has not traveled but is aware of world events and is capable because of the internet and because we are not living on an island where we cannot connect and speak to and correspond with people in other places should be put down because they haven't left the country or assume that their opinions are not correct. Now,
nobody said that. Nobody said that.
Not going to be my problem, but I definitely feel that I know people who have never stepped foot out of the country, but are capable of talking to and have relationships or even family that live in other countries, who may be have immigrated to this country, but their families still live in other countries. And that is extremely common, especially in places like New York and California, and really metropolitanized cities. So I think that you underestimate people's connection and ability to understand what's going on in the rest of the world because you've been there. I mean, for that matter, I could say my son could be an expert on what's going on in the rest of the world, right? He was barely, into his 20s when he went and moved and lived out of the country. So, it's less of an instrument. And again, if that's the case, no one could ever know anything, even an expert, because no one has met or experienced all of the billions of people on this planet. But what is definitely,
and I think that's a good disclaimer. That's a good discllaimer, though.
Can I interject
And
something?
if I wait, I haven't said anything in a while, so I want to make this little note. In debate and law and all that other stuff, like if you're ever in a debate competition, that's a listed fallacy. So what you were doing earlier is called argument from authority. An argument from authority is the presupposition that because someone hasn't partaken in a particular field or a particular event, that they cannot.
Bro, this is not about me. This is not about. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that to you, bro. My bad if you got that message. That's not what I'm saying. All right, so let's just dead that. If I felt like I was saying that to you, that's not what I'm trying to translate. I'm just saying I have a lot of experience in that. I didn't say you can't know nothing. And if I did say that, then excuse me. Let me retell that. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. So let me put that. We don't need to go down to debate and definitions, and this is what it's called in debate. That's okay. Excuse me if I said that, and that's what you got from the way I said it. So let's bring it back, and then let's continue down the discourse of what you were about to say, BMT.
So the thing about it is, and I want us to keep it about the indoctrination and the emboldened mindset. We have a thing that we used to do where we would line up everybody. And if I could take one of us and do something to them, and you have to question, was that inhumane? Then I've gotten into your psyche of questioning, what's humane and what's unhumane. And we understand this as to where certain things would happen towards certain groups, and we'll be like, well, did that person comply? Were they defiant? And see, once you have to start asking yourself these questions, that's when I know I got you. Because now you're questioning, should you ever buck back? So if a woman says, the hell with this, I'm going to go outside and get that orange, then I made you question whether you should ever go against that system or question your faith. And we're at that level now where, you looked at it where in certain states, you couldn't buy seeds to go get food. You couldn't get seeds to go get food. You had it where if you were to do certain things or get pertaining to certain items that weren't even of danger, and this is just regular things, that was problematic, and you had it where they were telling you, no, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. And this was all over the world. Literally, it was so crazy. I think 15 days, the world was shut down. Everybody was inside. Was it longer than that? And I couldn't believe that. I was like, no, I got to call somebody. I couldn't even get in touch with my friends in Jalalabad. And I was like, hey, like, are y'all okay out there? And I'm not gonna lie, I really did start to grow afraid. Like some revelation type of stuff. Like, oh God, I'm not even right with Jesus. And I'm like, wait, why am I praying right now? Like, who's coming to save me? And I mean, I'm just being honest that's when you start to understand just how much we're into the system. Where imagine what it would be like if they just shut off the internet for just 3 days, how people will react. And then they say, okay, we're going to shut this off. Like, we are very much out of tune. I know we like to say that we are builders, but that day, that's an old shell of the past of what we used to be. And I mean, granted, you got it with some people where you started seeing nations started to close up their borders, but they're like, we can't take you in. And I was like, whoa, this is different. Okay, so we are seeing that people can close up borders. we have to a child dying, a child dying, some people like, well, that was the parent, not society. And it's to that point. I don't think we can go back. We like to talk about going back to glory, or let's get back to the people, but I'm like, are those still your people anymore? Because what you think are your people are not your people. And it's not like you can do a Nat Turner because you wouldn't know who's who. Like I'm like, now I'm like, okay, I need to heal ideologies, and the mindset of old is now contextually gone. You now have it where there's different factions, Sons of the Patriots, NFACs. You have the federal government. You now have NAGA. You now have Viper. There are now different micro militias in the country that are just armed enough to take certain towns, states, settlements, that are now forming their own in their own God we trust laws. And you think anybody's gonna say anything about that? Hell no. What is it? Portland, Oregon? They stopped doing what one constitution said and made their own constitution. Right there in Colorado, California did their own thing. Different states went dark and started doing their own thing and only check in from time to time. And nobody wants to say that. And I'm just looking at this hemisphere, but I can only imagine what's going on in other countries. You know what I'm saying? But we're looking at it where different people are now forming their own entities. And I think by the time the lights come on, we're not going to know who's actually who, if that makes any sense. I hope I didn't take it off, but I'm just like, I'm looking at things in a different sphere whenever I go out or I hold conversations. And it's now I'm looking for, like, if you were to see it, would you notice it? And can I call you friend or foe at this point? Whether you look like me or you speak like me, we don't know just how far gone in these types of systems. Because, like Doc, I believe you was speaking about sacrifice. I think that's honestly the only way you can prove who you're with, by what type of sacrifices you're willing to partition towards your beliefs. And that's what honestly we're seeing. Are you willing to actually give up your children to be part of this system? Or if you want to be back in this system, you have to take on this type of metric system. And I know some people think, well, are you talking confusing BMT? No, I'm talking quite sane. But I remember when I was showing people how to make certain types of suture, do home stitching for wounds and stuff like that, everybody called me that crazy veteran. I was being called that up and down on different stuff. And then now I had people banging on my door like, hey, dude, you want to do that class again? No, it's too late. It's too late. Like, the door's closed. Like, y'all, we had a chance to actually barter, but now we don't have nothing. You don't have nothing to barter with me. And that's where we're at right now as a people. Especially if I honestly could tell y'all, ladies, if you can help it, please, if you can go do home, a house birthing where you can birth your child at home, do it. Do it. If you can help it, if you can find a midwife, pay her, and do it at home. Because they are doing stuff with children. That's how they're doing some of their tests. Fellas, hey, be prepared to learn how to fend and do for yourself, because you see how the system's changing, as well as the economy system. They're not really giving you back change, if you notice that. You're giving them change, but they're not giving it back to you. So the economy is changing, as well as...
Yeah, let's circle back around to that, because I was talking
apologize
about that earlier.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't go on no tangent.
Yeah, I mean, because I was talking about that earlier, I want to circle back around to that is,
Definitely.
so the way that TSA is set up now, for example, the immunity passports, they're talking about those will be useful to get through TSA without problems. And we already had ID 2020 come through. You know, it's official now this October that everybody has to have the real ID to comply with the global ID agreement, which is ID 2020. The first global IDs were issued. They're already switching to a lot of places going cashless because of COVID. Like BMT was saying, they're not giving you your coin back. And trust and believe they're going to merge this ID 2020 agenda, the real ID, which every country that's part of the United Nations now has their equivalent to the real ID. And the goal is to create an ID system where globally, that's why you have to fingerprint yourself. And eventually it'll be facial recognition if some people don't already have that in their state. And then all of the United Nations countries are going to sign on to that or have signed on to that. And then they're doing it so they can integrate into a global ID system under the guise that if you are become a refugee or you lose your information, that any country that's part of the UN will be able to access that. So you won't be ID-less. And that's going to be merged with a cashless system, right? Because of COVID, because they're making it like this, it's this huge thing. They're already cutting places that take cash. They're already doing no contact cells. And you're going to start needing this to travel. Like I said, I don't think I did it on the public channel, but if you guys who are my members know that I did a piece on, you know, with the CDC's talking about the immunity passports that they're looking at rolling out. So we're definitely, like BMT's saying, we're going to start seeing a new economic system and way of doing things. And not to mention, there is a serious food shortage in this country and globally. The crops have not been good. You had, and my son and I, we talk about this often, the locusts that were in Africa for months on end. You have China right now. A lot of their things have just been flooded. So they're not willing to let go of their food stores. They're even cutting off their own people. They're suffering water shortages right now. You know, they have had all that flooding. We have here now, California is on fire. They also refuse to let their workers pick their crops this year. The Midwest flooded last year, so we didn't get that harvest. This year, a lot of farmers in the Midwest and down south plowed their food back into the ground or didn't harvest it at all. And what was left was not able to be harvested because of climate. So we're going to hit a wall here. And things are going to change. And so all this other stuff is going to be a major distraction. You know, Russia has stopped selling, right? They've stopped the export of several of their grains. And Russia was a big exporter for Europe. But see, all of this is intertwined because of how trade works amongst the countries. And we, like I mentioned earlier, have gone off and sold 75% of our grain stores before they're harvested to other countries. So, you know, these are all things that we should be talking about, right? Because it's all going to change. And the way that people are such sheeple that as easily as BMT was talking about earlier, it was to just lock the entire planet down almost. There were parts of Africa and South America, right, that didn't get the lockdown, but the Western world was locked down.
Mm-hmm.
For such a significant period of time, that went down too easy. Without much pushback from billions of people, that is crazy.
Well,
So what is the next wave of that going to look like? That's what we need to be asking ourselves. And how do you prepare for that?
I don't even think we can. I think we don't even can at this point. It's kind of like that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't even. That's what I'm saying. Like, some people already are trying, and as far as preparing, like, if you ain't like, I look at things that are valuable. Like I actually talked with a farmer about getting some seeds, and I'm investing in like probably the next 2 months in some acres of land. Not for no putting down no like property down or a trailer, just to plant. That's all it's gonna be for, just planting. And people have been talking to me about um aquaponics. Like I'm saying, you guys, you might want to start learning some self care. I pass it over to you guys, Dark, and the rest of y'all. And definitely might want to start learning some self care techniques. 'Cause if you don't got nothing to barter, it's gonna be pretty hard.
Well, I actually can speak a little bit to that. Because I can't say I used to be, because I still have a lot of the tendencies of it. But back in early college, late high school, I was what you call a transcendentalist. And a transcendentalist is a person, it's the movement was a movement back in the mid to late 1800s, so about 1840 to about 1870. But essentially, it was a movement that rejected society and looked for God in nature. So essentially, it was a pseudo religious movement of poets and writers, essayists and thinkers that essentially said society is going to the crapper. We're going into the woods and we're going to build houses and stuff like that for ourselves and just live self-sustaining lives. So essentially, I more or less do have some of those skills. And the main reason why I haven't really gone off the grid yet is because I don't necessarily want to holistically give up on society just yet. Because I have seen certain rays of sunshine in the the otherwise bleak looking society that we live in. So I don't necessarily want to say, hey, I'm just gonna go piss off and do whatever by myself, because I do think that just like the Jews of old, back when the Bible was being written, you have to learn to cut off the people who want to live with the false gods, if that makes any sense. So just like the Jews back when Moses led them out of Egypt, you got to wait for the people that don't want to live decent lives. You got to wait for them to die off, quite frankly, or you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. But my goal, at least any political goal that I would have, if I ever decide to fully actualize getting into politics, would be to do that, to separate the wheat from the chaff. I don't know if I'll try and found a new nation, but I remember back when I was in high school, early college, I had this sort of idea that people have sort of a great migration to designated states, and then secede from the Union, with those three states becoming its own nation. But not sure how that'll work. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I would look into transcendentalism for the people that aren't necessarily familiar with it. So transcendentalism is transcendent plus holism at the end. So it's not really that hard to find, like to look up. And the quote unquote Holy Trinity, as I call of it, is Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Walt Whitman. And they wait, no. What's his name? Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson stand out amongst the three, but mostly Henry David Thoreau, because Henry David Thoreau essentially wrote the thesis that became the transcendentalist ideology. And every other transcendentalist sort of followed suit after Henry David Thoreau. But Henry David Thoreau essentially wrote what was the constitution of the transcendentalist philosophy. And that starts with On Self-Reliance. That's the name of his essay. And Nature. Wait, no, was Nature? No, Nature, I think, was Ralph Waldo Emerson. But On Self-Reliance was Henry David Thoreau. So I would look into that if anyone's interested in that. But yes. So the barter thing, I think bartering could be useful. But as I said, my philosophy was more always on the self-reliance thing. And matter of fact, I was talking to one of my friends about this just 30 minutes or so before, probably not even 30 minutes, probably like 15 minutes before I came onto this live, because I got onto the live because my phone died because I was in the middle of that conversation with him. And I remembered seeing the notification for this stream. So I got on this stream because I was distracted from that conversation. And I remembered that Irene was live. But not 10 minutes before I came on here, I was telling him about the difference between our classes, like our graduating classes for college. And we were criticizing the general skills and the general, strengths and weaknesses and all that other stuff of the class.
Wait. I'm sorry. I just have to say something. I'm sorry. So I just want to share this story with you. Can I? I'm sorry, Doug.
Sure.
So I sent a package overseas to somebody in the military, right? So my patrons and I did this. So in the package, I baked Mr. like a blueberry pound cake. And I had baked my pound cake before and I sent it overseas and it made it. And he said it was fine. So I was like, I'm baking a blueberry pound cake. And he was like, blueberries. I love blueberries. And I was like, I'm going to make you a blueberry pound cake. So I put a blueberry pound cake with cream cheese frosting, blueberry cookies, and he wanted Subway cookies, like with macadamia nuts and some other stuff, into a box last Thursday. And it hasn't arrived. Now he says he's going to try it, but I want a consensus. Do we think he's going to get food poisoning?
From 2-week-old?
It's not 2 weeks old. It's just one. I sent it last Thursday. Today is, it's a week and 2 days. Okay.
Did you airtight package it? Like, how did you package it?
So I put it in, like I baked the cake in like one of the disposable tins.
Right.
And then I put a top on it because it was iced, and then I wrapped it in plastic. And then the cookies I put in plastic bags. And then the Subway cookies I wrapped the same way as the cake, like I put them in a tin, and then I wrapped them in plastic. Those are all the perishable things.
Well,
Right.
So, and it was all fresh. Like when I got the Subway cookies, they were hot, like they were freshly baked. Because I sent a lot, so I think they had to bake a fresh batch. And then the cake was fresh. I mean, it wasn't hot because obviously I wouldn't wrap a hot cake or ice a hot cake. But remember, the last pound cake I sent him took 7 days to get there, and it was fine. But it didn't have fresh blueberries in it. That's the part that scares me. If it just were a pound cake, I would think it would be okay. But it had fresh blueberries in it. So am I going to kill him? This is the question. Is he going to die? He said he's going to eat it whenever it comes.
I don't think so. If it's sealed correctly, it can possibly, it should kill him. You know what I'm saying? But that'd be like them making blueberries at, like, whenever I go to Publix. And I mean, I know that cake be sitting there a few times and I haven't died yet. So,
but that's got a lot of preservatives in it. This was like a homemade cake.
That's,
you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm worried about. Like, I think if I put preservatives like Panera or the store, that's why I think the Subway cookies might be okay. I don't know if the cake is going to be okay.
Yeah, the Subway cookies are definitely going to be fine, because if it comes from a restaurant, like a chain restaurant, it's going to last like forever, because those things never perish at all. Like you could literally put a bag of McDonald's in like a closet or something for like 50 years and it would still be like in the exact same state. It wouldn't mold or anything. Matter of fact, funny thing, I just saw like maybe 3 days ago, there was actually a woman who had put a bag of McDonald's in her closet in like I think like 1978, or it was either 1978 or 1987, but it was like 40 or 50 years she kept it in her closet and it looked almost exactly the same as a burger that she had bought 3 days before. So like
Yeah.
Subway,
I'm not gonna. So Subway might have the advantage, but I'm not. Now, it's shameful. I literally am thinking of this because wherever he is, I think it's daytime, and it's tomorrow, like it's Saturday, and so we're literally texting about this right now, and I'm like, I feel ashamed. I really do want him to try to eat it. Like, is that shameful, y'all? Should I feel bad about that? Like, because I
I
want him to try to eat it, and I'm hoping it'll be good. And I'm hoping it'll be good too. I feel bad that he's like my guinea pig. But in my defense, I cleared it with him. I said, "Do you want to be my guinea pig? Because I'll try to send you this cake. Because you don't want to always send store-bought stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying?" So I'm like, if you want to be the guinea pig, I will do it. He seems determined to eat it. He says he probably won't get it till Monday. So he's down to eat it on Monday, which it'll be almost 2 weeks old. So I don't know. But in advance, I'm covering my back in case he gets sick with food poisoning. Because this is just me unloading my guilt, y'all. I feel guilty. I feel bad. If he does get the runs, he'll be cursing me. I hope he doesn't. He says it's going to be fine. He seems to think it's going to be fine. Let's just hope for the best. Y'all pray for him. If you guys are praying, people, pray for his health. Pray for the cake. Pray he's not bedridden. All right, I'm sorry. I just got sidetracked with that, but only because he and I were texting back and forth while you were talking. So I apologize for interrupting you, but I had to get like second and third opinions on this.
Well, yeah. I was gonna bring it around town. What I was talking about with the transcendentalists. Because we were talking about Black Male Talks was talking about going off the grid and that sort of thing. But that's another reason why I sort of gave you a little bit of pushback, Irene. Well, not just you, but like, a lot of the other more pro-Black, I don't know what to call it. Like I don't know what you call this community. But like I was saying before about what I was talking with my friend about, wait, I just got my train of thought back.
Why do you give pushback specifically?
Pushback on the idea of collectivism. So basically, I think the idea of collectivism is a little bit misplaced, because if you have a people that are a strong collective, they're going to be weak individuals. And that's sort of what I was discussing with the friend of mine that I was telling you.
What in the world? I need you to qualify that statement.
Well, okay. I'll say it like this. If a person studies really, really hard and all the other stuff, and they'll become like, and like this is just a watered down version of what I mean. But if a person studies really, really hard for themselves and all that, they can become like a rocket scientist or a physicist or like some really, really like skilled profession that very few people can do. But like, let's say that you have a class.
Joe, what are you doing over there? Are you beatboxing? Like, what are you doing?
I'm looking up how to make blueberry pancakes now.
Okay, but because I could hear you typing. I didn't know what was going on.
You really? Okay, This is the longest I've been sober. I'm mind-boggling. I never thought this. I can't go. I'm doing 21 days sober, and this is
Oh,
I don't.
I'm happy for you.
No.
Elizabeth will be happy to hear it. I'll never let you live that situation down.
I listen. That girl has a gift. I need to keep her close as my surgeon, or like
We're gonna be 140, and I'm still gonna be like giving you grief over Liz. Okay.
Okay.
But don't mute when you're looking for the blueberry pancake recipe. Okay, Dark, you're saying, okay, give your example, because I'm interested to hear how collectivism makes weak people, because I have an argument against this.
Well, you aren't necessarily going, well, not you, but like an individual person isn't going to necessarily hone their skills as well if they hone them when they have a deep support system. Like if you have, if a person knows that they can't fail, like if a person knows that if I screw up, then everything's going down the crapper, to keep it YouTube friendly, that person's going to work way harder. Now, if somebody has a good support system is good, but it's sort of the difference between someone who has, like, let's say their family has like a home or something like that, but it's not necessarily like something that's deeply paid for. It's not like they're a millionaire or something like that. It's like that versus a person that's a millionaire. That person that had to create their own wealth accomplishes more than somebody that comes from old money. Because if you look at it, generally speaking, people with old money generally fund like new ideas, but they don't make anything new. Like rich people that have long-term wealth don't make anything. They just sort of know how to keep the money within themselves. But if you want to make something and you actually want to invent and have some sort of prowess, that's something that you have to make yourself. Like new money, disbarring rappers and singers and all that other stuff. New money is people that had to innovate because they had no choice but to innovate. Now, and that's why, like I said, the people who come from those super huge support systems don't typically do as much, because they know that even if I don't invent the next computer operating system or whatever, even if I don't do any of that, I still have XYZ support system that's going to take care of me. And they know that, hey, I can just work for my dad's company or work at XYZ's company. And
well, okay, so I think you're confusing collectivism with people not being able to like fail or make mistakes. I would say collectivism is more like this, right? It's more like this. So, if you have an engineer that's capable of building a car, right? And then you have another one, you know, who's capable of designing a road, right? And then you have the people who pave the road, and then the guys that come down and do the lines. And then you have the architects that build the houses that are alongside the road. Collectivism is more like that, right? It's more like I'm doing something, you're doing something, so-and-so's doing something, and everything that we're doing works together, right? So that whatever my action is, it enhances what you're doing, right? Or it builds upon what you're doing. So I actually did this with my class yesterday. They all had to share, I explained this earlier in live, like they had to take one of the foundational words for the qualities we want them to exhibit at the Institute and turn it into an acronym and then apply that to Black empowerment, right? And so, you know, one young lady said, and I'm just talking about how I showed them how what they were saying wove in with the others, because I was explaining to them we are a fabric as a community, and each person is a thread, right? And we want to be weaved tightly to create a strong and durable fabric. So, one young lady was saying, a lot of times things are destroyed in the community, but we need to start building things bigger and better, right? Every time something's destroyed, we need to make sure we build it bigger and better. And then another young lady, in hers, she was like, we need to make sure that we're laying down strong foundations, right? Then another child was like, we need to make sure that when something goes wrong and the community faces some adversity, that the leaders in the community are stepping forward and encouraging the people so that they can get through that, right? And then another child was like, we need to be active. We need to take action, and we need to correct people who are doing something wrong, doing things wrong. And I said to them, do you see how everything you're saying, everything builds on the other? And then, one other young lady said, well, with time, we've learned about, what our people are like in America. So I said, okay, Ukua, like one of the girls' name is Ukua. She's in Ghana. I was like, what you said about when things are torn down to rebuild them, that's amazing. And then what, this young lady said about having learned things about ourselves will allow us to rebuild the way you were talking about upon a strong foundation, like Soraya pointed out, right? And the ability to correct individuals that are doing things wrong will ensure that whatever we build will be stronger, like, the brother was talking about. And then I'm like, and then the other brother was talking about how we need our leaders to step in and provide some guidance and things like that, and encouragement to people when our community does face adversity, that they should be visible, right? And that those are grassroots leaders. And I said, do you see how everything that you guys have said, although everybody went home and did their work separately, how you guys are all contributing to a narrative where your ideas build on each other's and are intertwined? Collectivism is more like that. It's more like, I am a doctor and you're capable of building me a hospital, and you're capable of providing the supplies for the hospital, and you're willing to be the nurse, right? You're willing to be, take out the trash. Collectivism is a community, and everybody doesn't have the same job, and it doesn't mean that everybody fails. What it means is that we recognize that my actions are there to benefit and mesh with the people around me. So I'm bringing something unique to the table. And I guess that's why earlier, and I hope Here for Truth wasn't upset, I hope he just had to go, I was pushing back on him saying, he's like, well, I traveled to 40 countries or 70 countries, and I lived in all these countries. And I was thinking, even if he were 70 years old, he couldn't have spent very much time in all those places, right? To go to 70 places, like, you can only be there a split second, even if you went to different places every year of your life since birth. But that's neither here nor there. It was like, well, I've done all this, right? But people, on YouTube, they don't even, leave the country, but they try to speak about global issues. And my pushback on that was, number one, that's an argument that doesn't need to be made here, right? Because BMT was in the military and is well-traveled. I am well-traveled, and you might be young, but if we speak to people who haven't traveled, that doesn't mean that they can't understand the world, right? That doesn't mean they can't follow world politics. That doesn't mean they can't talk to people. Like, just in this chat room, we had people in the beginning of the chat who are from all over the world, right? The internet has made us capable of communicating with people anywhere on the globe. So we can't dismiss other people's contribution to either conversations or the community because we feel that we are beyond, or their scope of understanding and contribution is not where it should be to be valid or valuable. And so when we talk about collectivism, we're talking about recognizing that everybody has a place, from the smallest child to the oldest person, and that their contribution is valid no matter how small we perceive it to be. And that as much as I may know there's something that I can learn and take from even the most what could be considered menial amongst us, right? That our goal is that we work together to create a cohesive community that is producing. And that in and of itself isn't done through not allowing people to learn by failing, right? If they're going to fail, because so much can be learned from failure, or dismissing people because we feel that we are above them in some way. Maybe we have more money, maybe we're more attractive, maybe we're more cultured. It doesn't come through that, right? It comes through recognizing that each person is equally as valuable as you, no less valuable. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I was telling one of my students today, because the young lady said, you know, I'm going to listen to my elders when they are providing sound advice. And I said, that is beautiful, right? That you want to listen to your elders that are providing sound advice. But I said, but you know what? Somebody who's telling you everything that's wrong, you can learn a lot from that person too. You can learn a lot from a person who is failing, right? Doesn't mean you have to copycat them, but you can't disregard people simply because they didn't make the right choice. You can learn a lot from people's wrong decisions. You can learn a lot from people's bad advice. If it's nothing else than that there are people like that out there, or that this is a game somebody might try to run on you, or that this is not how I want to be. I have never gotten into drugs because I've seen people high while I've been sober. And watching them make the mistake of being high made me realize drugs are not for me. I don't like that. I don't want to be high. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to behave like that. So that's what I mean, that nobody in their experience and what they bring to the table is not valuable. And that is essentially what collectivism is, right? We collect to weave a fabric, and every person is a thread in that fabric. And we need a tightly woven cloth. And that is the essence of collectivism. So I think if I thought of it the way you did, which is every time somebody stumbles, you know, you're picking them back up and they never get to grow as a person. Or, you know, if every time a baby got ready to fall, they never learn how to balance themselves. If you just never let them wobble, right, is essentially what you're saying, right? Their legs would never get strong if you insisted on holding them up. You know how you do when babies are first small, you hold them so that they can fake walk. But if you never let them attempt on their own, their muscles will never get strong enough, right, to do that work. That's why they say you shouldn't set them on a side note, mom brain here. You know, you shouldn't put them in, what are those little things called? My kids have never had one that you sit the kid in, a walker, right?
Yeah,
They say you shouldn't do that, right? Because it's doing what you just described, always holding them up. But try not to look at it like that. Try to look at it more as contributions that work together to weave a cohesive cloth, right? Where every person is valued, whether they're failing or not. Because that's something else the kids in my class and I were discussing. I said, you know, one of the kids was talking about essentially trying to get everybody to awareness. And I said, you realize everybody's not going to be great. That's the reality. Everybody won't be great. That's why I don't believe in conversionary tactics. Everybody won't be great. The majority of people will simply go along with authority, right? So you don't need to go on to a conversion, you know, hunt for people. You don't need to do that because most people won't convert that way. Just like, you know, everybody can't sing and, you know, everybody's not, you know, great at painting and, you know, everybody doesn't have a mind for math, right? Everybody is not going to come to a level of leadership. Everybody's not going to be hyper aware. Everybody's not going to be super down for a revolution. And when we have those expectations of people or think that they're dispensable, you know, what we should learn about successful societies is that everybody has a place and a purpose, right? There's work that a person who will never be a leader, there's still a job for them to do. A person who's a follower is not necessarily not an asset, because if you set up leadership, what does a follower do under leadership? They follow, right? But we have a negative connotation with the follower. Mostly because followers, you know, we always associate them with following the wrong thing. But you know what? A follower is a follower. And so there's no harm in a follower if you know how to set up leadership for them to follow. Well, that's good for you. Too many pilots make the plane crash. So we have to start rethinking, right, our own indoctrination in those ways. And we have to start visualizing collectivism and community in a different way. I think a lot of times we either want to convert people to our mindsets, right? We want to demean people, right? We want to decide who has value, who doesn't. We want to criticize people because their mindset isn't like our mindset, or we feel that we've excelled in our intellect and our wokeness above them. So then we're looking down on everybody. Like all these things, instead of recognizing people have value as they are. And we have these conversations for exchange of ideas, you know, and to nourish things that already exist in people, whatever those things are. Because at the end of the day, what kind of society will we have if we're only including the people that we find the most valuable, not recognizing that our measure of value could be off? Now, that's my personal opinion, but that's a little bit different than what you were talking about. As far as constantly holding people up, I agree with you. That wouldn't be successful. But
Well,
also think that's not the blueprint, right?
well, yeah, I would actually 100% agree with you on what you were saying. But I think that I think where we really split is that the way I've seen the quote unquote collectivism executed and how I've seen it pushed, like generally pushed, isn't necessarily that. Like, see, that what you were talking about, I'm completely 100% agree with you on that. But the way I've seen collectivism used most typically is if I suffer, you suffer. If I fail, you fail. And it's not necessarily meant for anyone or even the greater society to do better. It's just to make sure the person that doesn't know how to do anything really doesn't feel any negative effects for them not doing anything. Because, like I said, a society where people work together and all that, that's beautiful. What you said, like I said, Irene, what you said is 100% correct. But I have yet to see, or at least in the last maybe 40, 50 years, I've yet to see that executed like that. Like, I would say that it was probably done like that when you were younger, like in the 70s, 80s, and maybe 90s. But that's gone way downhill since it's gone way downhill since then. And the collectivism in theory and collectivism when you were younger was probably that. But I think that it's a lot more devolved since you've come to know what collectivism is.
Oh my gosh,
Because
did
it's
you read what it said in the private chat? BMT went to make pancakes. He was legit making
yeah, I
pancakes.
saw.
I'm
Yeah, I
so
saw.
done with him. I'm so completely done with him.
Yeah. And one more little statement. And here's where I think that the collectivism has been failing of late. It's not just the leader's job to protect the individual person, but it's also the people's job to protect the leader. The idea is, and this is where I've seen not just collectivist governments, but almost all modern governments fail, is they don't protect their leaders. And they don't want their matter of fact, I can't remember who I said this to. I can't remember who I said it to. I think it might have been that same friend I was having that conversation with earlier, but I don't quite remember, but I remember having this conversation with somebody. I said, "What is the American and I guess Western fascination with leaders not making any money?" Because whoever said what I'm about to say is what triggered this. They said something along the lines of like, "Oh, this leader wants to be a millionaire." Oh, I think it might have been my mom actually. It maybe, I don't know. I can't remember, but it's somebody I knew in real life. It's somebody that I've known. and it's not like just some random person on the street, it was someone I knew. I was like, what is the American fascination with leaders not getting any benefit out of leadership? Because the one thing that a person would have, the one incentive for somebody to have to take all the burden of leadership onto themselves, the one thing that would be is A, money, and B, protection to be able to do their job. But Americans especially don't like paying their leaders, so their leaders are open to corruption. And two, they don't like to protect their leaders. So it's easy for
I don't know about that. Because here's the thing:
I would say
they're not open to corruption because Americans don't like paying them. A greedy person is a greedy person. You have people that are multi-millionaires, billionaires, and are corrupt because, okay, so not to go whole religious on you, but there's this scripture. I wish somebody could give it to me. It's like, if a man has shoes, hold on. Let me find this because this was very profound. It literally, when I read this, I was like, here it goes. It says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. That scripture is so profound for me. It's saying there's no end. Right? That's why you have people who have thousands of pairs of shoes, hundreds of pairs of shoes. You know what I'm saying? You have people that collect obsessively like one thing. You have people that are whole multimillionaires out here, billionaires, but steady trying to get money. Because when a person has a love of something, they can never get enough of it. Their lust for it is insatiable. So you can never pay them enough because they're always going to want more. That's how people work. Like, that's the vanity of people when they have a love, when they set up a God. If money is their God, if power is their God, right? If Louis Vuittons, are your God, then you can never have enough. You'll keep purchasing and purchasing. You'll always be trying to fill a hole that will never be filled because you are greedy. You're gluttonous for that.
Wait, hold on, Irene. But I'll say like this. You're right. I know you're right. As a matter of fact, I can't remember who said it, and I do disagree with you. I do disagree with you on the general premise, but what you said is 100% correct. But I'm going to tell you where my contradiction comes in. Somebody said, and I think this was like 2 weeks ago, they were like, good people don't get into politics because good people don't crave power. But why is it that good people don't like being in politics or being in positions of power? It isn't necessarily because they inherently hate the idea of power, because I'm sure just the men would rather see themselves in power than they would a corrupt man. But then you have to think about what are the dangers of getting into politics. Because politics is so innately corrupt, you can't necessarily guarantee that a good man who plays by all the rules and who would love to see the freedom of his people, you can't guarantee that that person won't get bumped off by the most corrupt politician in the same room. And that's where what I'm talking about with the safety and the pay comes in. It's not necessarily safety and pay for the sake of safety and pay. It isn't about encouraging career politicians. It's about the idea that you shouldn't make $60,000 a year for something that could possibly get you killed. You shouldn't make $100,000 a year, or in the case of the president, I think is it $400,000 a year or $400,000 total? I don't remember. But you shouldn't make I'm gonna just assume it's $400,000 a year. You shouldn't make $400,000 a year for the most dangerous job on the entire planet. I think that's pretty ridiculous. And this is why we have billionaires or people who siphon off money from whatever millionaires they can find, because the people who you would want to be your leaders aren't the people with the resources. And with the attitude that Americans have, the attitude of, oh, well, if he's just in it for the money, then why would I want him? Well, no, it's not about, oh, he's in it for the money. It's not about, oh, well, he just needs the 70s, even the 80s and the 90s to a more slight degree. The people who try to do actual good work, who would do the good job, we can't expect them to want to get any benefit out of the job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, whenever somebody does get into politics that does try to do something, they have the danger of immediately getting bumped off. I don't necessarily understand that. And I understand what you're saying about the idea of we don't want to incentivize people to want to make politics into a career, but at the same time, we should incentivize people to want to make politics into a career. Because until the people who get more benefit out of creating drugs that screw up people's nervous systems can actually channel that same intellect and actually doing something that's beneficial to society, we're always going to have the same problems. Because the problem that society has isn't necessarily that it's innately corrupt. I don't think that people or society is innately corrupt. I think that people do what is easiest for them to do to get ahead. And as long as the evil thing is the most beneficial thing, then that's what we're going to get.
Well, listen, this is what I'll say. Maybe we should think and Goodness Rated, she pointed this out the best. Leadership is best an ideology, and I agree with her. Leadership is best as an ideology and not a person. And that's why when I did the last actual video that I did on this channel that stayed up, like the last on institution building, that was one of my main points, is that leadership should be like an institution, right? A set of ideologies that you can superimpose any human being, into that institution, and the institution will keep going whether they drop dead or don't drop dead, or, whatever it is. Get kicked out, voted out. But the institution will remain the same. So we have to look at it more like that. And also, the best leadership is not looking for compensation. And yes, I do know Trump says he's not getting paid. He doesn't need the money. Honestly, I think he could wipe his butt with $250,000. So I'm not impressed that he chose not to get paid. It would matter more to me if he needed the money. But he doesn't need the money, so I'm not impressed with the fact that he refuses to take a salary. It's like, oh, you refuse to take what you spent, allow your wife to spend, on a couple of purses. Amazing. Do you know what I mean? I'm not impressed by that. But, he has enough money, so why not do it? Because a lot of people will be impressed with it because it's a lot of money to them and they'll feel it's significant. So I understand his attempt successfully, right, of doing something that's going to seem like a big deal to all of us, because we don't have access to his money. So it seems like a huge, a big sacrifice for him, or like, oh, that's very noble. He doesn't need the money, so he's willing to give it up. But it's not noble because it's not a sacrifice for him. Also, because the job in itself gives him some positioning that'll benefit him after he comes out of office, because he was already a successful businessman. But I think, and I want to start to wrap it up. Irene, how can you lead when you do not have self-love? Self-hate will only kill you. Well, that's true. But I think that we should have ideologies, like you were saying, institutions that we build, and then leaders go into them to maintain them, right? And I even struggle with the word leader, language is for communication. So I'm going to roll with the word leader, but I even struggle with that too, because I think that the idea of leadership makes those in quote unquote leadership positions haughty. And I think that is where a lot of the corruption comes in. And also these divisions, you know what I mean? Of these divisions of expectation. Now, I do think people deserve to get paid for their work. So let's be clear on that, right? People deserve to get paid for their work. But, you know, how much do you need? You know, at what point is it enough for you to say, well, you know, this is not an issue for me, or my work is valuable? You know, there's a lot of work that I do, and I don't have to work, right? I don't, you know, I don't have to push a clock. My income is very stable. I don't have to worry about that, right? But yet, y'all know that I work almost 7 days a week, and I'm not talking my hobby, like YouTube is a hobby for me, but I work like 7 days a week, right? This week I did all kinds of things, and I did not get paid not one penny for anything. But I would argue that in the various things that I did, in the 2 or 3 endeavors I have that I give my time to, that I function in a position that it can be likened to a leadership position, and I don't get anything, right? So that's where it's like, okay, so how much is a leader worth? I mean, that's subjective. Every teacher at Ziax doesn't get paid. None of them. They don't make any money, but they're there all day, every day. They put together curriculums. They give their time, give their money even, right? Nothing, and get no money for it. I would say that they're all leaders, right? So, you know, those are examples of people who are in leadership positions, and sometimes the payment is not monetary, right? Sometimes the payment is being able to do what it is that you do. Stephen King, and y'all, I don't care that he's white. Stephen King is one of my favorite fictional authors. And he has a quote in one of his books, and he says, "All talent wants to do is be used." And leadership, I feel like, is a talent. And the satisfaction is in being able to lead, right? There's nothing like somebody who is a good leader who's never been in a position to lead that can be frustrating for them.
Well,
so I don't.
Real quick, Irene.
What'd you say?
I want to ask you something, but I do have another statement that I kind of want to follow up on. But I want to ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone that teaches at Zion Institute, do they have another form of income?
Ziax.
Like,
It's called Ziax.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I thought you said Zion.
No, Ziax. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's probably because of, well, I don't know if I have much of an accent, but I sort of relaxed the X, so I sort of said Ziax.
Oh, okay.
Sort of just like had a lax flow into the next word. But do all of the people that are unpaid at Ziax, you said all of them are unpaid, do all of them have some sort of income that can support them outside of Ziax?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, but I want to, before I forget, IQ, you said observe the Sabbath. So this is what I'll say. Literally, my daughters and I were talking about the Sabbath yesterday. We were talking about Sabbath. And we were talking about like how, because I've been so tired. And I was like, I'm ready. I was joking around. I was like, I'm ready to bring, because we used to observe like literally Friday evening to Saturday evening Sabbath. I was like, I'm ready to bring back celebrating the Sabbath. And I was joking. And the reason I was joking is because, you know, we're taught to celebrate the Sabbath every day by resting from sin, right? Every day is Sabbath. Every day we should rest from sin, because the Old Testament was a schoolmaster to bring you to the New Testament, where you worship God in spirit and truth. So though I have no issues with observing a physical Sabbath, none at all, and I may just do that just to force myself to physically rest, I also recognize that the next level of that is a spiritual Sabbath where you rest from sin every single day, right? Every single day you're not living with sin. So that's what I would say to like the idea of just taking the Sabbath. But with that said, I do I was literally talking about taking a physical Sabbath just for the sake of just forcing myself to take a break. Although I also want to say it's okay to do good on the Sabbath. So I could technically do volunteer work and help other people on the Sabbath and still be observing a physical Sabbath. Just want to throw that out there. But it's funny you brought it up mostly because literally I was just joking with my daughters. And I was like, we got to bring back physical Sabbath because so mom is tired. So I do agree with you. Like you do have to take a physical break. So, but I was just adding that caveat that obviously we know that Sabbath is a 7-day a week, 24/7 sort of thing that we should be observing. But with that said, I don't know what their financial situations are. I know what my financial situation is, and I'm in a position where I can do that and not get paid, right? I homeschool during the day anyway, like I'm a homeschooler. So it's nothing to me to teach other children anyway, because, I would be homeschooling during the day, even if I wasn't volunteering there. So I don't know how they make it work. None of them, I don't think, are very wealthy. I know two of the teachers are married and they own a business. And, I don't know everybody's story, but I know that they volunteer their time because they feel strongly about it, right? They really want to invest in our youth and they do it because they love the community. That's why they do it. So I think that's really where leadership starts, right? It starts with a passion and a love for what you're doing. And then the compensation can be monetary or it can be in the satisfaction that you're accomplishing what you want to accomplish. Because we do all stuff all day, every day for ourselves, out of love for ourselves, and nobody gives us a penny, But the minute we do something for somebody else or the collective, we want to get a coin. And I'm not saying again that a person should not be paid for their work. I'm definitely not saying that. But I am saying that everything does not have to have a monetary value, right? Of course, I would never want to see somebody in a leadership position and just starving. We want to make sure that people eat. But I also just don't think we should automatically attach monetary,
Wait, hold on. I want to look this up because my mom always tells this story. Okay, so this
Did
is
I
New
link what?
Testament.
Goodness rated. What are you talking about? Did I link what?
The parable of the talents. Okay, so I want to
What is
quote
goodness
this
rated?
because this is a story my mom always would
What are you
tell,
talking
and
about?
although I tend to focus more on the Old Testament, and this is from the New Testament, I think it's pretty applicable. So there's a story. Well, it's a parable, and since it's New Testament, I'm assuming that Jesus gave the parable about talents. And so basically the parable is counting talents as if they're stones or as if they're like something that was physically given. So the parable goes as this, and I'm pretty sure you should know it, Irene. Um, One man, God came down, and there were three brothers, or I don't know if there were brothers or whichever, but God came down, and there were three men. God gave the first man 3 talents. He gave the second man 2 talents, and he gave the last man 1 talent. The first man with the 3 talents multiplied his talents, and he had 9 talents, and he had great wealth and all the other stuff. The second man multiplied his talents, albeit not as well or efficient as the first, but he did, and he ended up with, I think, 4 or 6 talents or whichever it was. And the last guy, which only had the one talent, said that he was afraid to have lost the talent, so he buried it in the sand and waited for God to come back to return it to him. So that tells me two things. The first thing that it tells you is what's explicitly said. What you should gain from it is, well, you shouldn't bury your talent, even if you only have little talent, because you can always gain more talent from what little you have. That's the first lesson, the overt lesson that's explicitly stated in the story. But the second thing that I gathered from that is from too much is given, too much is expected, but also too much is received. So the person that had the 3 talents multiplied his talents, but he also benefited from those talents. And I don't think that that's necessarily something that's controversial, but managing 9 things at once, I'm sure, should benefit a better net than managing only one thing. Because that's like saying that somebody that carries the weight of the world, and I guess this is another sort of qualm that I have with the general idea of collectivism. Or maybe I don't want to make that into a jab because, I love you, Irene, so I'm not going to try and have any dishonesty in the conversation. But
Aw, you love me. I love you too. Look at us loving each other. I just think you're sweet. It just kills me that you could be my baby.
Oh,
that's how I think of you. I think of you like you could be my child, my son. And it's so sweet. But go ahead. Keep it on.
But yeah, I don't necessarily think that someone who carries the weight of the world should necessarily be expected to carry that weight, but also have to carry the fear of danger to his person, or the fear that he won't be able to take care of his family when he no longer has to carry that burden. Because think about it like this, right? Let's take the president as example. If the president took his salary, going outside of Trump, going outside of, people that already can afford to pay their way, because Obama won like the Nobel Peace Prize and all that other stuff. That's $1 million. And then he took money from all kinds of other people. He's a millionaire. Outside of these rich cronies, right? The salary, like we discussed earlier, is $400,000. The president cannot work after being president. So let's say, assuming that we have another young president, like let's say somebody that was like JFK's age. JFK was 43 when he took the office. JFK's family was also billionaires. So make of that what you wish, what you will. But let's take the exact same leadership qualities that JFK had, but assume instead that he wasn't from a family of millionaires and billionaires, but was a common lawyer or a common engineer. He had the exact same qualities. He had the exact same power to lead, but he was an engineer that made maybe $60,000 to $100,000 a year. Now, do you think that had JFK been an engineer, all things considered, the same qualities, the same charisma, all of that, do you think that as an engineer with $60,000 to $100,000 a year, JFK would ever become president or ever even bother to run? That wasn't a rhetorical question, but if you,
I'm not sure.
But
I'm not 1,000. I can't lie.
But that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. The people that don't have, but have the ability to, don't have incentives to jump into highly dangerous positions because they have the skills to succeed. They have the power. People who are good don't become president, not because they're, oh, I'm just not going to be president because I don't want power. It's because the risk far exceeds the reward. Now, if I was president, what would
they didn't become president because they can't afford to run.
That's exactly what
I
I'm saying.
think they just can't, but that's not the fault of people not giving them money. That's the fault of the system that's set up so that only wealthy people can run. But wait, we can't talk forever because you know what I did? I unplugged my Mac and I brought it downstairs and I said, when my computer got ready to die, that would be the end of the live. So I'm at 12%. So I'm just warning you now. We can talk like slightly longer, but then we should probably gracefully say goodbye so that it's not a weird situation where my Mac just shuts off.
Okay.
But I think that's more a result of like this, how the system is set up, but this is one of those situations where I'm like, look, when we have these conversations surrounding like placement of any leadership in a faulty system, although I know you're just using it as an example. Oh, but can I go back to the Bible thing? Because you kept talking after that. So I do know that parable. It's talking about the kingdom of God, and it's more talking about, it ties into another scripture that talks about how faith without works is dead, right? So you show your faith through your works. And two of the men chose to show their work, right? And one of the men wanted to just not fail. So he just buried his talent, right? He just buried his and he put it away. And he was able to say, see, I still have what you gave me. I've kept really good care of what you gave me. And he was chastised for that. He was like, in the parable he's told, why didn't you do anything with it? But, that's one of those things. It's just talking about the kingdom of heaven. And it's just teaching us that, we show our faith through our works. Like we are to do something. And that goes into like, you're the salt of the earth, a lamp on a hill should not be hid. Like we are supposed to be visual and out there. People should know that we're Christian. That should be reflected like in our conversation and things like that. We should not, that's not a thing that we're hiding. Like we don't go live in seclusion in the mountains somewhere, and just never engage with the world. Like, so that parable is like more along those lines. I just wanted to like double back on that. It was less about, it was just representative of like what we do with our time and with our faith. And a similar story was the virgins with the lamp oil. Do you know what I mean? And them just being last minute. Because remember Christ said in the New Testament, he was like, I speak of the kingdom of heaven. Like all my parables just talk about the kingdom of heaven. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything else. So he told us like, because remember his disciples didn't know what he was talking about. Then he was like, oh, you don't know? Okay, let me tell you. Let me tell you what the parable means. Because, he said this when he was telling you about the sower sowing the seed. Again, they didn't understand it. And he was like, fine, I'll explain it to you. Do you know what I mean? But he said, that that the kingdom of heaven is what he was talking about. Like that's what he was preaching on, and that's what would be preached until he returned, that the kingdom of heaven would be preached until he returns. So the New Testament speaks a lot about that. But I do love that parable. That's one I haven't acted out with my kids. I like to pick little parables. The favorite one of theirs is the widow and the unjust judge. And my Bella likes to go, avenge me of mine adversary. She loves doing that. She would be so cute. She's like 4 years old and she'd be like, avenge me of mine adversary. But I'm going to have them act that one out because that takes 3 people and I'll have to be the guy that gives them the talents. And now I have 3 little ones. I have 3 little ones that can do it. So I'm going to have them do it. But anyway.
I can't wait. This is the last question I have, and this isn't a serious question. How many kids do you have? Because I know you have the two that are my age.
I have a lot. I never talk about how many I have, but I have a lot of children.
Well, yeah, because
I have a collection. I have a tribe.
Yeah,
But I only have 3 little ones in my house right now.
wait,
But you have to remember that I've been a mom for 25 years.
Yeah, but does that count for the 9-year-old and the 11-year-old?
Yeah. Those are the girls.
Okay, because I thought the only 2 that were older than them are the 2 that are my age.
Well, and I have some adult ones, yes. But I like that you're counting, but I haven't talked about all of my children. I just tend to reference the eldest ones and the youngest ones.
Yeah,
and I don't talk about the people in the middle. Yeah. I never talk about the middle ones. They're neglected. But I have a lot of children. I'm fertile. Yeah. But I only have 3 little ones.
Okay.
In the house right now. So I think I'm at the end of my child rearing years because I'm an old lady. I've been making babies for 25 years and my baby making days are over. I think I could have more kids because I haven't gone through the change or anything, but I don't think I will have any more kids.
Oh, please don't.
No, Mr. said, don't be a grandpa dad. No, children are a blessing. I feel very lucky. You know, I know people who cannot have any kids, people that can only have one child. And when I was a young mother, people used to look at me really crazy when I would come out with all my little ones. And people would say like the rudest things, like, you're not going to have any more, right? Or are those all yours? And I would just be like, you know, when I'm on welfare and, you know, when I'm not driving up here in a Benz, you know, when it's not that, then feel free to say something, but otherwise don't say anything. Like if I'm married and I have kids, then that's what me and my husband do. And that's just what it is, you know? Yeah. But, children are a blessing. And the Bible says, blessed is he that has a quiver full. I don't have a quiver full, right? I'm under a quiver full. I'll say that. But children are a blessing. I love my children. And I think one thing that's kept me really young are my babies and caring for them and having a happy life with them. And they are my insurance policy, right? When I get old, my kids have a plan for who I'll live with. They talk about this. You know, they talk about how I'll probably like to live with Liz the best, but Bella will probably take the best care of me. And, you know, Javier will tolerate me for babysitting purposes and to help his wife. Like they have a plan. And then, you know, some of my, you know, and then the other boys, because I have all boys except for 2 girls. The other boys are just not even a consideration. It's just been established. I won't want to live with them. But it's interesting. They've had these conversations about their mom. And I think that's really sweet that they thought about my care in my old age. But
wait, Bella is the 9-year-old, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Bella is your favorite. So I feel like you'll probably live with her.
I don't have a favorite. I think Bella would drive me crazy because she's like Punky Brewster. Like she's like colorful and she likes a lot of clutter. And I would go insane. But she is literally like the sweetest human being. Like she's the most beautiful, sweet person, kind, gentle. She can't see a person upset or crying without trying to help them.
Found the favorite.
but she's not my favorite. You know what? I don't have a favorite. I value different things about all of my children. Like Liz and I probably get along and bump heads the most because we are exactly the same. Like she is me reincarnate in her personality. So she and I vibe the best together. But obviously I love my eldest because he and I can have conversations and he disagrees with me on a lot of things and we agree on a lot of things. Like we got into a debate over police brutality and if the first debate that he ever walked out on too, and whether or not some of these Black men were in the wrong or in the right? Or, you know, not in the right, but whether some of these Black men were in the wrong or the police were in the wrong. So I enjoy those conversations with him, you know. Like each child, there's something about them. They're so different. Like none of them are anything alike. and they're so different. I don't have a favorite. I like love different things about each child because they're such unique people. And I just honestly, I sit and I go, oh my gosh, my kids are freaking amazing. Like, I don't know how I ended up with such great kids, but I did. Maybe they'll be like, moguls. I told them they have to stay close and build and then do business with each other, and create a tight security net for each other. That's what I would hope. Like after I'm dead, that they would be very close knit as a family. Because my family, although we didn't grow up with monetary problems, and everybody knows everybody and even does holidays and stuff, I would say it's very fractured in that people don't keep up with each other, the older generations, as closely as we should. We typically come together for holidays if somebody's sick or if somebody dies. Do you know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Yeah, is that like kind of how people are?
Well, see, it's more nowadays, but when I was younger, my family was more like,
Okay, by goodness, Raiden.
yeah, like when I was younger, my family was more close, but we all lived in the same town. But like by the time I was like teenage years, everybody was getting old, all the kids started moving out. That's when everybody started sort of, you know, drifting apart. But when I was younger,
7%. So we're gonna. What'd you
like
say?
oh, I said when I started hitting my teenage years, because I'm like the youngest of my entire generation. So like when I was younger, we were all pretty close. But as all the kids started getting older, this was when I was about a teenager. But I'm like 10 years younger than my mom's oldest. And she started having babies relatively late. So my mom was basically 40 when she had me. So I have a really old family, and I'm basically the youngest. I'm the second youngest, I think, technically,
Do you hear
because
me?
my grandmother had a litter of kids like yours. So my grandmother had like 8 kids, I think, and the youngest of which is just now turning 50, and the oldest of which is like 65.
That's really young. Your
Yeah.
grandmother must have been young
Yeah,
because
no, yeah,
50
she
to
she started
65 is
having
very
kids.
young.
She started having kids at like 17, 18, something like that.
Mm.
So, yeah, she was born in 1940. I'm probably telling too much information online. But anyway,
I don't think so. I don't think just knowing the year is going to help
yeah,
anybody. But
yeah.
anyway, yeah, let's go before it cuts off. You guys, thanks for chilling with me. I do have a recorded video done about Black Jesus Loves the Gays. A
Black,
YouTuber did it and then she quickly renamed her video, but I did do a commentary on it. I just haven't had time to edit it. So that will probably be the next edited video you guys see unless I do something shorter. I'm still working on my documentary about the Jews, but like you guys know, I've been working on my textbooks and I'm not done with them. So those things like editing is very labor intensive and it also ties my computer up. So um
uh-oh.
quick question. What is your take on people saying faith without works is dead, non existent, but it seems as every example of faith has to do with obedience and not works? Obedience is a type of work, though, isn't it? Right? Obedience is a work. That's doing something, right?
Well, what I think that
Wait,
really means.
we can't go in. I only have 7%. We can't really go into it.
Okay,
But
wait,
we
can I
can go
take
into
wait,
it another time. What we could probably have that I haven't had a while take a poll is like a Bible battles, which is not where we really fight, but it's where we just talk scripture. So I think that would be a fun thing to do. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Everybody won't be in love with that, but I don't care. It's been a while since we had one.
okay.
Anyway, I'm gonna go to bed. My computer's about to die. Dark, thank you for coming up.
Wait. Subscribe to the kid. The kid is me. Wait, let me get my link before you end the stream. Give me like 3 seconds. You still there, Irene? Oh, wait. Did she cut it out? Boom. That's my link. Subscribe to the kid. Bye, Irene. Oh, I think she died. I think her thing died. Well, night, people.